Jeanette hadn't looked at herself before she left the apartment this afternoon. She hadn't wanted to know what Veronica had done to her. Of course, she had known how the blue dress looked. Veronica had taken her shopping the day after the first rehearsal and insisted on buying something more your age, honey. Jeanette had known about the tiny sleeves and low neckline, which was why she had insisted on bringing Aunt Gretchen's old white shawl with her tonight. She wasn't going to walk all the way from the apartment to the Lewis Center with so much of her skin out in the breeze. She hadn't checked the makeup Veronica had applied, though, and she hadn't looked at her hair. Her hair. She had worn it in a bun for years, ever since she was 13, and Aunt Gretchen told her she could let it grow as long as she liked. Jeanette did, not because she wanted that river of red down her back, but because then she could twist it away out of sight. This afternoon, though, Veronica had sat her down in the living room and put a towel around her shoulders. "Just a trim, Nanny, I promise." And then, while Bruce Springsteen's voice blasted out of the stereo speakers, singing about finding the promised land at the other end of Thunder Road, Veronica snicked with the scissors and cropped Jeanette's hair away. Jeanette had known what her sister was doing. After all, she could feel the unfamiliar curls tickling her shoulders and neck. Still, as long as she didn't actually look at her reflection, she could pretend it probably wasn't as bad as all that. Now she saw it. Standing in the empty dressing room, she looked at the woman in the mirror. The woman had silver half-moons on her eyelids. The color spread all the way up to her eyebrows, which, darkened with pencil, looked like slashes on her white forehead. Mascara had turned her lashes long and black. Her skin looked like cream, except where blush fanned out over the high cheekbones. Her lips were dusky rose. The deep V-neck of her dress showed off her white neck and throat, and the blue cap sleeves, plain, simple fabric, but somehow not so plain now, accentuated her soft, rounded shoulders. And her hair. Rich, red curls fell to her shoulders, a tangle of fire. She was lovely, like an actress. Looking at her reflection, Jeanette heard Aunt Gretchen's voice in her head, looking for trouble. This family has had enough trouble, don't you think? In the mirror, the strange woman's eyes went wide. Isabel. The name came out of a past that Jeanette would have cut out of her memory if she could, if Records Mill had not been as much a part of her as her lungs and heart. Isabel Riley had left home when both of her daughters were too young to know. She had been driven out, though Aunt Gretchen had never said as much in words, by her shame. She had had first one child, then the other, less than a year apart, and by different men who had abandoned her. Her daughters had never learned where she went. After Records Mill shut Isabel out, they had never seen her face in so much as a picture. The town had never let them forget her, though. You know what your mother was, don't you? She was a... Jeanette had always guessed that she herself looked more like her mother than Veronica did. It was the hair. Aunt Gretchen, for instance, had had silver hair since time out of mind, but you could still make out traces of copper in it. Riley red. Jeanette had never said the word mama to any woman in her life. It floated into her head now, as she looked at her reflection, and brought another word with it, the filthy, ugly, stinking word Jeanette had so often tried to forget. Your mother was a whore. For a desperate second, Jeanette wished she had brought the white shawl up here with her, that even if she extinguished her bare neck and forearms and scrubbed all the makeup off, no power in the world would give her back her long hair and twist it safely into a bun. Veronica had gone too far this time. Too far. We'll make him notice you, Veronica had said. But when you decided that someone had beautiful eyes, and when his smile made your heart jump stupidly in your chest, then you opened yourself up to all the pain in the world. Especially if you let him see who you were. If you let him know about you. You gave him your secrets to use against you, and he could hurl them at you like stones. Jeanette turned out the light. The dark crashed in around her. For a second she thought again about how much she would like to stand here and let the rest of the world go on about its business. Stay here safely in the dark, the way she had hidden at the back of her closet in Aunt Gretchen's house when she was very small, after she ran home crying from school because of the words the other kids had thrown at her. Whore's baby. Bastard. Jeanette forced herself to leave the dressing room. The door swung shut behind her, a heavy noise in the dark. She had to go back downstairs to rehearsal. She couldn't afford to be a child now. She had to be a woman and go and do this job she had wanted so much and had worked for so hard. But it would be so much better to stay here alone, where it was safe. It would be so much better not to go back to the chorus and have to sit at the piano in front of all those people, all those eyes, in front of the man who had noticed her.